Now, I just want y'all to listen.
Forced them out of their bed and placed them under arrest. Their crime? Interracial marriage.
Love. Many say it is the one thing that makes the world go round. It is beautiful, it is kind, it is imperfectly perfect. But what happens if a man loves a woman whose race is different from his race, and the society and time makes things difficult for them to be? Watch this video to learn about the famous white men in Hollywood who fell in love with black women, and how in some relationships they ended up in jail. It may seem like a normal thing to see a white man falling in love with a black woman nowadays, but fast rewind to early, mid, and even sometime in the late 1900s. It was not only weird, it was considered morally wrong. Errol Flynn and Eartha Kitt. In the 1930s and in the 1940s, Errol Flynn was a key figure in the entertainment business doing some swashbuckling films. Errol Flynn was indeed an adventurous man on camera, and when the curtains drew down, he was equally adventurous, especially when it came to romance. In the mid-20th century, Errol Flynn was struck by the beauty of the celebrated singer Eartha Kitt. Her elegant voice would tickle the ears of Errol Flynn, and just like that, a romantic relationship was formed. According to reports, this relationship would occur somewhere early in the 1950s. The couple's relationship was not the kind of relationship which would last for long. It was a brief thing. But as much as this interracial love was brief, it was very much intense. It was so intense that Eartha Kitt would recall the relationship between her and Errol Flynn, and all she could say was that Errol Flynn was a passionate and exciting lover. Eartha Kitt would even say that she had shared a very strong bond and chemistry with Errol Flynn, and every detail of their relationship was shaped to perfection. One thing worth to note is that in the 1950s, interracial relationships were seen as if they were not only unnatural and wrong, but in many states in the United States, would term interracial relationships to be illegal. The couple might have been in Hollywood, and they were celebrities with big names on them, but such kind of a relationship, especially for established celebrities like Errol Flynn and Eartha Kitt, would spark a significant backlash, and given the racial norms that were there at the time, it was destined to draw both fascination and scandal. It was not just the law that was a big issue here, there was the society, and the society was not taking it easy for Errol Flynn and Eartha Kitt. Eartha Kitt was actually the one who would face more challenges in the relationship. This was mainly because she was an African-American woman dating a white man in a white-dominated industry. This relationship would prove to be very dangerous to Eartha Kitt when it came to her career, and her reputation was also at risk. Her lover, Errol Flynn, was known to be a very controversial man. This would mean that it was more risky for Eartha Kitt than it was for Errol Flynn, but Errol would only add this relationship to his status of a controversial lifestyle. Eartha Kitt would reminisce the story, saying, "Errol was very charming and very wild. He had this devilish charisma that made him utterly captivating. Our time together was exciting and full of energy, but also fraught with challenges because of the racial attitudes of the time." Being with Errol was an adventure, but it was also clear to both of us that society was not ready to accept a relationship like ours. The scrutiny and the judgment were constant companions. Marlon Brando and Dorothy Dandridge.
Hi, I'm Sister Bates. And I'm Sister Dudley, and we're missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Were constant companions. Marlon Brando and Dorothy Dandridge. Marlon Brando was a man who was known for his high-profile acting and high-profile women. He did play amazing roles in films such as The Godfather, A Streetcar Named Desire, and On the Waterfront. As a man, Marlon Brando was very rebellious in nature. His rebellious nature would reflect his acting style and his personal lifestyle, to the extent that he was always defying societal norms at that time. He would fall in love with a woman who was known for the star role in the film that was titled Carmen Jones. This was none other than Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a woman who would break the racial barriers in Hollywood with her charming beauty. She was even nominated for an Academy Award for her role in Carmen Jones, and many would even say she might have won the award if it was not for unfairness. Just like Errol Flynn and Eartha Kitt, the relationship between Marlon Brando and Dorothy Dandridge would take place in the 1950s. The couple were deeply connected to each other, as they were both deeply attracted to each other. They shared a deep chemistry, and they were all trailblazers in what they used to do. They were just the perfect match at that time. It was through the shared experiences that the couple had in the entertainment industry that led to the deep connection between the two. Marlon Brando and Dorothy Dandridge both knew very well the intensity of the racial barriers that were surrounding interracial relationships during the 1950s. But despite all the things that were going on at that time, they just continued with their relationship with all the hostilities involved and all the disapproval they faced along the way. Despite all the societal norms that existed, the legal implications that the relationship could face, and the career challenges that they were being faced with their relationship, they would still get it on, and they had to navigate the harsh racial climate to fight for their love. But the couple were a bit smart. They did not take their relationship to the media. Everything they did, they would keep it away from the mainstream media, because they were fully aware of the amount of backlash they would face. Dorothy Dandridge would reflect on the entire situation of her relationship with Marlon Brando and the societal challenges, saying, "Marlon understood me in a way that few men ever did. He respected my talent and my struggles as a black woman in Hollywood. Being with Marlon was a breath of fresh air. He didn't see color. He saw me, Dorothy, the woman, and the actress. Our relationship was a beautiful escape from the harsh realities of the world we lived in. But it was also a reminder of how far society still had to go in accepting interracial love." On the other hand, Marlon Brando did have something to say on racial equity and societal prejudices, saying, "If there's anything unsettling to the stomach, it's watching actors on television talk about their personal lives. I don't think of people as colored. It's not my way of thinking. The only reason for race discrimination has been economic advantage. In Hollywood, we are all pawns of a capitalist system where only the color green matters." Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter. We cannot talk about white men who loved black women and fail to mention the relationship between Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter. It will be unlawful not to talk about this headliner. As a matter of fact, failure to talk about this headline-hitting couple can even get you arrested. Richard Loving was just a simple man who hailed from Central Point, Virginia. On the other hand, Mildred Jeter was also from Central Point, Virginia, and she came from the African American heritage, but she also had traces of Native American descent. Here is why it is very important to talk about this beautiful couple. On the 2nd of June 1958, Richard Loving decided to marry the love of his life, Mildred Jeter, in Washington, D.C. The reason why Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter decided to get married in Washington, D.C. was quite simple. Interracial marriages were legal in Washington, and so they did not face any challenges on their wedding day. But shortly after getting married, the couple would return to Virginia, and things started getting ugly for the beautiful couple. On the 11th of July, 1958, barely a month after the two got married, they would get arrested. This was because in Virginia, interracial marriages were illegal, and so they had broken Virginia's anti-miscegenation laws. The couple were arraigned in court, and thereafter they pleaded guilty to interracial marriage. After their guilty plea, they were both sent to 1 year in prison each, and they were demanded to leave Virginia, and for 25 years, not to step foot in the state. After getting kicked out of their home state, the couple moved to where they got married initially, Washington, D.C. The two would only long to return to their home state as a couple, and Mildred Jeter Loving was getting more and more frustrated that they cannot live in their home state as a couple. As a result, in 1963, Mildred Jeter decided that she was going to take action. So Mildred Jeter wrote a letter to Robert F. Kennedy, who was the Attorney General at that time. In return, Robert Kennedy referred Mildred to the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. The American Civil Liberties Union decided to take on their case, and the ride would only become very bumpy, and so there was a case that was to be heard concerning Loving versus Virginia. On the 10th of April, 1967, the case would get argued before the court. Later on the 12th of June, 1967, the decision was made. The Supreme Court would issue a unanimous decision that would strip off the anti-miscegenation laws of Virginia. According to the Supreme Court of Law, the banning of interracial marriages in states was in violation of the Equal Protection and Due Process Clauses of the 14th Amendment. Richard Loving, who was not the talkative kind of person, would air his views telling his lawyer the following: "Tell the court I love my wife, and it is just unfair that I can't live with her in Virginia." Mildred Loving would reflect on the entire situation in 2007, where she said the following words: "Not a day goes by that I don't think of Richard and our love, our right to marry, and the importance of everyone being able to marry the person they love. I am still not a political person, but I am proud that our name is on a court case that can help reinforce the love, the commitment, the fairness, and the family that so many people, black or white, young or old, gay or straight, seek in life." Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower. Another interracial couple involving a white man and an African-American woman is the relationship between Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower. The relationship between Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower has its history from decades ago. The two would first meet somewhere in the 1980s, when Grace Hightower was working at a restaurant in London known as Mr. Chow. Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower would begin dating somewhere in the mid-1980s, and after a long period of dating, which almost lasted for approximately a decade, the two would decide to tie the knot in the year 1997. Just a year in their marriage, the couple were blessed with their first child, who was a boy, and they named him Elliot. Elliot was born in the year 1998. Later on, after around 13 years since they got their first child, and 14 since they got married, the couple happened to get their second child, and this time, it was a girl by the name Helen Grace, who was born in the year 2011. You may be wondering, if the couple got married in a time when there were not too many rules that inhibit interracial marriages and relations, their relationship must have been perfect, right? Wrong. These two have had their own fair share of challenges. It may not have come directly from the law, but the law has been involved. The couple have been on and off since the beginning of their marriage, and the road has not been an easy one. As a matter of fact, just 2 years after the two got married in 1997, they would run to the law to seek a divorce in 1999. But their efforts to get divorced from each other did not bear any fruit. As a result,
Y'all, it's true. The 2024 stimulus check is true. It's back, but they ain't calling it the stimulus or whatever they call it.
As a result, the two ended up reconciling just shortly after trying to get a divorce at first. After the reconciliation, the couple tried to keep their relationship strong and to keep the fire in their shared love alive. In the quest of keeping their love alive, Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower decided that they would renew their vows in the year 2004. They did the renewal of their vows in a star-studded ceremony that would include the likes of Ben Stiller, Meryl Streep, and Martin Scorsese, among other celebrities. It may have seemed as if the two have finally got off their rough patch and they were now cruising happily ever after, but after they got their daughter, Helen Grace, in 2011, something was waiting for them in the year 2018. After over 20 years of marriage, Robert De Niro and Grace Hightower would file for a divorce. And this time, it was not kids' play as it was back in 1999. This time, things were more serious. This time round, they happened to go through with it, and the divorce was finalized in 2019 after it was initiated in 2018. Due to the fact that the two have children together, they have kept their lives somehow private, and they support each other in their individual endeavors. They are also very much active in co-parenting their children. Grace Hightower has spoken about parenting and marriage, where she said the following words: "Being a parent is the greatest joy in life. It's about love, patience, and being there for your children no matter what. Marriage is a journey, and you grow together through the good times and the challenges. It's about mutual respect, understanding, and love." On the other hand, Robert De Niro has also spoken about marriage, family, and relationships, where he had the following words to say: "The most important thing in life is family. Being there for them and being able to give them all the love and attention they need is the most fulfilling thing. You have to work on relationships. You can't just walk away when things get tough. That's when you need to support each other the most." Robert De Niro and Diane Abbott. To think that the Robert De Niro thing for African American women started just in the mid-1980s with Grace Hightower is awfully wrong. Before Grace Hightower, Robert De Niro was in love with another African American woman by the name Diane Abbott. Just like Robert De Niro is an acclaimed actor, Diane Abbott is also a well-known actress. The two both played roles in the film known as Taxi Driver. The two met in a time when there were still issues involving interracial relationships. It was quite unusual in the society at that time. It is said that Robert De Niro and Diane Abbott met in the 1970s, and it is suspected that they must have met in the entertainment industry. At the time of their meeting, Robert De Niro was already in the limelight, as he was known for the 1973 film titled Mean Streets. The two decided to get married in 1976, and so they did. In the same year, 1976, Robert De Niro and Diane Abbott got their first child, who was called Raphael De Niro. Born in 1976, Raphael De Niro was named after the name of the hotel where he was conceived in Rome, Italy. At that time, Diane De Niro had another child, a girl by the name Drina, who was born in 1971 from Diane's previous relationship. Robert De Niro decided to adopt Drina, and she took his name as her surname, and so she was called Drina De Niro. Apart from Taxi Driver, the couple have featured together in films like New York, New York in 1977 and The King Comedy in 1982. Robert De Niro was a prominent figure in Hollywood at that time, and being a prominent figure led to strains in their relationship. Due to the strains, Robert De Niro and Diane Abbott decided to amicably divorce in the year 1988, ending 12 years in marriage. They have since been very active in co-parenting their children. John Barry Ryan III and Eartha Kitt. John Barry Ryan III was a well-established businessman and a well-known socialite who was born in a wealthy family with ties in the banking and shipping industry. He had a relationship with the hitmaker of Sacy Bon and Santa Baby, Eartha Kitt, in the 1950s. John Barry Ryan would meet Eartha Kitt somewhere in the 1950s, and he fell in love with the charming singer and actress. This was a time when interracial relationships were seen as evil in the society, but still, they had to let their relationship blossom to the fullest. At that time, the relationship between John Barry Ryan and Eartha Kitt would face a lot of scrutiny and backlash due to the difference in the color of their skin. Just the simple fact that Eartha Kitt was an African American and John Barry Ryan III was not just white, but he was coming from a very rich family, would make the relationship provoke so many people. Sadly, the relationship between John Barry Ryan III and Eartha Kitt would come to an end due to the amount of societal scrutiny that they used to face. It affected them on a personal level, and it was almost affecting the career of Eartha Kitt. In her biography, Eartha Kitt would recall her relationship with John Barry Ryan III, racial discrimination, and societal scrutiny, saying, "John was one of the few people who made me feel special. He saw me for who I truly was, beyond the glitz and glamour. Our relationship was met with so much resistance, not because of who we were as individuals, but because of the color of our skin. It was a constant battle against societal norms. Being with John taught me so much about strength and resilience. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and it made me a stronger person." Living in a society that dictates who you should love and be with is one of the hardest things to overcome. But love is the strongest force, and it transcends all barriers. The pain she had was so enormous that she would say the following in interviews: "I have always believed that love should transcend color. John and I shared a deep connection that had nothing to do with the color of our skin. People were not ready to accept a relationship like ours. We faced criticism and prejudice, but we stayed strong because we knew our love was genuine." Tom Jones and Mary Wilson. Tom Jones was a Welsh singer known for his charismatic appearances on stage as a great singer, who did songs such as "What's New Pussycat" and "It's Not Unusual." On the other hand, Mary Wilson was one of the founding members of the Supremes, known for songs such as "Stop in the Name of Love" and "Baby Love." Tom Jones and Mary Wilson met somewhere in the mid-1960s when their respective careers were on the peak. At this time, both of them were already international stars, and despite all the busy life that comes along with it, their relationship would still blossom. Their relationship was in a time when there was a lot of scrutiny revolving around interracial relationships, as in the 1960s, it was still not easy for them to date. But to keep themselves relatively safe, they would keep their relationship as private as possible and away from the media. But even with the private relationship that they tried to keep, the couple would still break up, but it was mainly due to the hectic and busy schedules in their careers. The time was just not on their side, literally. In the autobiography of Mary Wilson titled "Dream Girl, My Life as a Supreme," she talks of the brief but romantic relationship she had with Tom Jones. She also recalls how intense and exciting the relationship was, as she says, "Tom was a very charismatic man, and we had a lot of fun together. It was a brief but memorable romance." On the other hand, Tom Jones had always over the years talked about his admiration for Mary Wilson and her beauty and talent. He spoke in an interview saying, "Mary was a wonderful woman and an incredible talent. We had a special connection, even if it was just for a short time." Tony Curtis and Jilly. During the 1950s and 1960s, Tony Curtis was one of the leading actors in Hollywood. He is well known for the roles he played in films like Spartacus and Some Like It Hot. Jilly was just a simple African-American woman. The two met in the 1950s, when it was a taboo to be involved in any sort of interracial relationship. At that time, Tony Curtis had to keep the relationship as discreet as possible. This was to make sure that his career does not have any negative repercussions due to this relationship with Jilly. As much as they had a good relationship, it was brief and very low-key. Tony Curtis would only reflect on the difficulties that revolved around interracial couples during those days and the difficulties navigation through societal scrutiny. Frank Sinatra and Dorothy Dandridge and Eartha Kitt. Frank Sinatra was one of the most iconic musicians of all time. As a matter of fact, many would term him as the GOAT. His greatness was not just in the music, but it would cross over to the women. There have been several rumors saying that Frank Sinatra and Dorothy Dandridge had been dating somewhere in the 1950s, but the relationship was relatively brief. The relationship between Frank Sinatra and Dorothy Dandridge also had to be kept on the low, so as to avoid the bad effects it would have on their careers. The Old Blue Eyes was also rumored to be involved in a romantic relationship with Eartha Kitt during the good old days, but they also had to keep everything a secret. Frank Sinatra did not really care about the color of the skin of any human being, as he once said, "A friend to me has no race, no class, and belongs to no minority. My friendships are formed out of affection, mutual respect, and a feeling of having things in common. These are eternal values that cannot be categorized." Over the years, interracial relationships were not that easy, but it was through these great relationships that white and black can coexist beautifully without discrimination and scrutiny.